Well, I'm glad to see you this morning. I was just thinking earlier, does it feel like it's been a month since last Sunday? I mean, there's been a lot that's been crammed into 1 week, hasn't there? And this morning, I have to tell you, it was 15 degrees in my house, and it was snow and ice-packed streets, and it was pretty exciting. I enjoyed the adventure of getting out and being about this morning. My favorite part was somewhere between 5:30 and 6. I thought, I know what, I will start my wife's car so that when she gets up and goes to church, car will be defrosted and warm, and I'll earn a few points. Because I'm always trying to earn a few points, because I'll cash them in later when I do something dumb. And I went out, and the battery was flat dead. And so I thought, well, okay, not only do I not get points, but I know who will have to be fixing that battery later today. But it really made me thankful for my Chevy. Okay, so I'm going to move on from there. Hey, we're still kind of in the Christmas season, aren't we? And we still got the tree up and the decorations up. And, I think I told you, my tree in my front yard was decorated really early this year for Christmas. On our street, a lot of people put out lights and hang lights. Mine was decorated really early this year. I never took them down from last Christmas. So I'm thinking, and I put up more lights, for the holiday, and I'm thinking I might just leave all the lights up. It was so easy this year not to have to mess with them. Well, we continue with kind of the rest of the story today. We know really the real rest of the story came at Easter. Came at the cross, about which we just sang, and came at Jesus' death and burial and resurrection. That's really the rest of the story. But we want to take a few minutes today to look at another part of the story that we know oh so well. And we're going to read, in fact, today from Matthew chapter 2, the first 12 verses. And what I'd like to ask you to do, if you're willing and if you're able to do so, if you would stand with me and just follow along as we read and listen to this story again. It's such a familiar story. There are some little bits of it that jump out at us. And as I was reading again this week, a couple different phrases stood out to me that seems like we ought to take some time to think about again today. Matthew chapter 2. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star in the east, and we've come to worship him." And when Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Gathering together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. And they said to him, "Why, in Bethlehem of Judea. For this is what has been written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, land of Judah, are by no means least among the leaders of Judah. For out of you shall come forth a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Well, then Herod secretly called the Magi and determined from them the exact time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, and he said, "Go and search carefully for the child, and when you have found him, report to me, so that I too may come and worship him." After hearing the king, they went their way. And the star, which they had seen in the east, went on before them until it came and stood over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And after coming into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they fell to the ground and worshiped him. Then, opening their treasures, they presented to him gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. And having been warned by God in a dream not to return to Herod, the Magi left for their own country by another way. And this is the reading of the word. and you may be seated. Such a familiar passage, and one that we tend to fill in the gaps because really the Christmas stories in both Matthew and Luke are rather succinct, and there's not a whole lot of detail. So when we come to this recounting by Matthew of what took place after Jesus had been born in Bethlehem, we tend to want to fill in the blanks. And sometimes when we fill in the blanks, we miss some of the finer points of the text itself. I will have to say, we don't know much about these magi. In fact, the only time we hear about these guys is right here. There's a lot of conjecture about who they were, what they were about, what they came for, why they knew about this child, this king of the Jews who was to be born. I also, as I read this, I can't help but see that the Magi were excited. They'd already put in a lot of time and expense to get here. They came to Herod and said, hey, there's a king born. And I wonder if they thought Herod would be excited about that. He apparently wasn't. In fact, the text tells us not only he was troubled, but Jerusalem was troubled also. Why do you suppose Jerusalem was troubled? Had the word gotten out? Had they seen the star? Did they know? Were they curious? Had rumors been spreading about? Were the shepherds still going all over town telling everybody what they had seen? Why was Jerusalem troubled? I ponder that. Actually, we have no real hint why they were troubled. But in the midst of this really gladsome time, there's still some bothersome time as well. I wonder when Herod said to these guys, when you go to Bethlehem, find the child and come back and tell me. I wonder if they heard a tone in his voice. I wonder if they might have thought, maybe there was another way we should have gone in order to find this child. Several things stand out when we read this text. There's a particular phrase, though, that stood out to me. I don't think as many times as I've read this story, and you have as well, we've all read it, I don't think that this little passage had jumped out at me, this little phrase. It's really, in the original language, it's essentially one word. But yet we find it here in verse 12. When the Magi left, they went home by a different path. They went home by a different path. That phrase jumped into my mind this morning, or actually through this week, in reading this, and I thought, well, sure, they went back by a different path. Of course they went back because they've been warned. Of course they went back because they didn't want to see Herod again. Of course they understood that probably going back the way they came was not a good idea. That is, back through Jerusalem and then on the main road. In fact, whatever road they took back, we don't really know for sure, because there was essentially one main caravan trail, one main trail for trade back and forth between the east and west of this part of the world. That's what they had come on in order to get here. They went back by a different path. They went back home some circuitous route, some way to get back that was different from what they were familiar with. They went back also changed people. Can you imagine? They had seen this star. They knew something was up. They understood from their studies that it was a sign of a king. They came, they found the child, and something swept over them. With exceeding great joy, this star stopped here, pointed there. They went in. There was this child. And they fell on their faces. They left their gifts. They were never the same again, were they? How could they have been? Actually, nobody in the Christmas story was quite the same as they had been before they met this Christ. Clearly, Mary was never the same. Clearly, Joseph was never the same. The shepherds, their whole lives changed somehow or other because they had been greeted by the heavenly host and that starry night. These guys who were not very clean, certainly not ritually clean. They were not welcome in the temple. These were not people who were looked upon kindly or highly by the rest of society. We've heard a lot of different stories about the shepherds, but let's get right down to the bottom line and the way we find them represented in chapter 2 of Luke. They were just simple, low caste people, and yet the message came to them. They could not have been the same afterwards. We see that they ran to town. They were jumping up and down. They were excited. And then they told everybody afterwards. The Magi, the same. They could not have gone away unchanged. And they went home by a different path. That's the phrase I'd like for us to grab hold of today. Because we're going to put it in a bit more of a metaphorical phrasing at this time. Yeah, they went back on a road, but they went home. They continued their lives by a different path. And I think the message for you and me today is this, that when we meet the Christ, that when he is revealed to us, that when we have a personal encounter with him, when we feel what they felt, an exceeding joy, an overwhelming encounter, a life-changing moment, that everything changed, that they saw the world differently, that they then saw the path home in a very different way, that they took a different path than what was normal. Let's think about that today as we think about the whole story of and the message of Christmas. Clearly, Christmas is filled with joy. I mean, we sing joy to the world. We sing joyful and triumphant. We sing hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn king. We sing Gloria in excelsis Deo. We hear about the shepherds. We hear about the Magi. Everybody filled with exceeding great joy. Joy, a message of joy to you this day, the angel said. A joy that goes beyond comprehension. This is something brand new in the world. The world will never be the same. Time will never be measured the same. History will never be marked the same. Everything changes. There's now a new path home. A different way from what the world has known before. A different way from what the world has ever offered or ever will be able to offer. The encounter with Christ is just this. You now have a new path, a new road, a new way home. Take that path. That's the exceeding great joy. But also keep this in mind. In the Christmas story, there's a lot of danger, isn't there? There's a lot of uncertainty. The angel said every time the angel showed up to Zacharias, to Joseph, to Mary, to the shepherds, don't be afraid. I mean, there were fearful moments because when the angel showed up, the people to whom the angel showed up were not quite sure if they were going to live or die in that moment. But also, we see other dangerous and dark things going on, particularly in this passage. What does the king himself do? When he realizes that the Magi have gone home another way, he says, there's only one way I can make sure that this upstart, this presumptive child king doesn't move into my territory. There's only one way. Murder, violence, chaos. Destroy the children. Everybody 2 years of age and under in this area, slaughter them. This Christmas story, filled with joy and life and rejoicing, is also filled with darkness and danger and uncertainty. And that's a troubling thing for you and me, because we realize that's exactly how life is. That the path we trod in this world is a dangerous, sharp-edged, difficult world that continually throws obstacles and barriers and challenges and pain at us. This world promises so much and offers so little. The path we walk in this world, the path every human walks in this world, is fraught with danger and fearful things. And you and I know that. When we read the Christmas story, we read that into this darkness came light. Into this this abyss of lostness came a word of hope. The angel says to Joseph, not only should you go ahead and take this child, take this woman to be your wife, because the child that is in her is of the Holy Spirit. The angel also says, and this will be, what's the name? Emmanuel. Emmanuel. God with us. This will be God with us. He is God in your presence. You will find hope in that. When Mary realized and said, let it be done according to your purpose, she says, I know that this is the way to go. There's hope in Mary's response of faith. When she sang what we call often the Magnificat, she said, blessed be the name of the Lord, for he has come among us, and he will break down the barriers, and he will lift up all those who are lost and broken. He will lift them up. So when we look at Christmas, when we think about the path we walk in this world, and then we think about what Christ Jesus came into and what the story offers to us, and we realize that what it really offers is a different path, a different way home. And you and I need to be thinking about that in these very days. The birth stories point us in a different direction. The Magi followed the light, and then the angel said, now you got a new path. Now you got a new way to go home. Herod, of course, filled with fear, was willing to murder to maintain power and rule with intimidation and fear and violence and chaos and call it peace. You know, the whole world has that kind of thing going on. We hear all the time, right here in our own country and in the world, the use of power and force and intimidation and violence is often what the world has to offer. And then what the world calls peace. The world calls peace this little moment where there's not actually a war going on right here. That's the path that the world offers. What this Christ coming means is we have a different path to follow, a different path on which we find life, a different path where we find opportunity for life and not death, for hope and not for despair, for genuine peace that nobody can take away, freedom that cannot be taken away, that's in here as a result of the Spirit coming into us. That's the different path. So when you and I walk through this world, we realize we're not walking in the path that the world has set out for us. Shepherds were not mesmerized by claims of wealth and riches and success and empire. The shepherds realized that a whole brand new way of being had come to them, that they could step away from what the world said you have to do and find a brand new way of going, of being, of living, of thinking. What you and I get the privilege of being are Christmas Christians in a very dark world. A few years ago, Oscar Romero, prolific writer, Christian writer, said, we really are called to be Easter Christians in a Good Friday kind of world. It makes sense, doesn't it? In a broken and dark place where death still reigns, we are called to be Easter Christians. We could just draw a parallel and say we're really called to be Christmas Christians in a dark world. We can sing Christmas carols, by the way, all year long. We can sing joy to the world all year long because we know we're walking a different kind of path than what the world offers. Let's think about that for a few moments today. If we really are on a different path to home, what's that going to look like? As I pondered that even this week and said, Lord, I would like to be on your path home, but I'm not very good at seeing. I'm kind of nearsighted. I'm kind of self-centered. I'm kind of focused on this, and I so often stumble and miss the trail. I miss the road. I get off the path. There are several things that come to my mind that I think you and I need to think about. I certainly know I need to think about them as we move into this new year, as we walk a different path, as I say, I want to be going home a different kind of way than what this world says. One of the things that I think is important for us to consider is the importance of silence. Our world is very, very, very noisy. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed how much stuff just comes at you from every direction? Have you noticed how much the devices that we carry and the ones that we turn on and the ones that we turn on in any number of ways, there's always a lot of noise. I'm amazed at how many people I see walking down the street or wherever else I see them who have earbuds in. Can we ever find just time to be quiet? It strikes me that God would like to speak to you and me while we're looking for this other path home. And He'd like to say, I got some things to say to you, but you're going to have to listen carefully. You're going to have to turn some stuff off. You're going to have to get away from all the external influences and listen carefully. You have to look in my book. You have to take some time to listen to what I have to say to you through my book. That's not easy, is it? I have for most of my life struggled with trying to keep a regular Bible reading habit. Anybody identify with that? I've used every kind of Bible reading plan that there is. I found one a number of years ago that I thought was really cool that I still use to this day. I've probably been, probably 20 years. And I'm so proud because every January 1st it starts over. January 1st, hope springs eternal. And I say, this year I'm going to stay on this plan. And it takes me through the whole Bible, takes me through the New Testament and through Psalms twice. I'll be a biblical scholar by the time I get through. Then January 3rd, I think, oh shoot, I forgot. Or something happened. Or something else came up. And it goes that way. And I think, if I'm going to be on this path, I better continually remind myself and be reminded that I need to set aside that time regularly, daily, to listen and reflect. Somebody challenged me a few days ago to memorize a book of the Bible this year. And I thought, okay, good. That's a great challenge. I just hope I can read a few verses every day is what I really hope. But I'm gonna take that on as a challenge. But a different path involves just being quiet and listening. A different path is going to involve some stewardship. It's going to involve some stewardship of what I possess, of my money. It's going to involve managing and handling that the right way and saying, God, everything I have is from you. Help me to be a steward, a good steward of this. But I'm going to have to also practice stewardship of time. That may be the biggest challenge because it's really easy for me to just fritter away time. You know what else I discovered this last few weeks? I discovered Facebook. And you're saying, yeah, that is so like early 2000s. So I'm going to make a confession to you. And this will come as a shock. I actually graduated from high school. Next year it'll be 50 years ago. I know. That sounds impossible. In fact, I can't believe I'm still alive. I had no idea that it would last this long. Like somebody said the other day, well, if you knew it lasted this long, you probably would have taken better care of yourself, would have been trying to be a nicer person, or tried to do something well. But I thought, man, somebody needs to be planning our 50th high school reunion. And then I thought, I haven't heard from anybody. A bunch of hooligans nobody must be doing anything. So I thought, I better figure out what's going on. So I actually called my high school I graduated from, way back in Oklahoma. I called them one day and said, surely they'll know what's going on. And I said, hey, is anybody, plus I had to go through 5 or 6 different people, but finally somebody seemed to know, who's this old guy calling? I was famous in high school. I can't believe they can't remember me. Well, okay, there were like 46 of us in the graduating class, right? So like my dad always said, don't forget you're a big fish in a very, very tiny pond. Well, okay, so they never heard of me. They never heard of the class of 70, and they don't keep an alumni roll. Can you believe that? So I said, okay, I'm going to have to find people. So I decided to become a Facebook stalker. And I said, I've had a Facebook account a long time, but I never used it. But my kids said, okay, here's how you do that. Thanks, kids. And so I get on Facebook, and lo and behold, I found a few people whose names I recognize. So, okay, the ball's rolling, but now I realize that Facebook is so yesterday. So they said, now you need an Instagram account. I said, okay. So I downloaded Instagram, and now I have Instagram. I thought I was doing pretty well when I text and do email on my phone. Now I got Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and all kinds of other stuff. And here's what I discovered. That when you have that phone and you have all those apps on there and they're all wanting your attention, it's really hard to say no. Because, the little green dot that shows up on the app says, you got a message? I want to go, I got a message. Somebody wants to talk to me. Somebody's got something to say. I can't miss it because I don't want to miss whatever they might be saying. And so I discovered over the last few weeks how much time I was given to my phone. And that I was fearful of missing out. You've heard that phrase, right? I was so fearful I was going to miss something that somebody posted. Here's what I discovered. Here's my personal opinion. Facebook is really boring. Because it's just the same thing over and over and over. And it's the same people doing the same stuff. I don't need to see any more cats. I just don't. Or, how many pictures I see of people under the Christmas tree with their family, and they all posted it. And so one of them was like, oh, geez, let's keep going. And so it's just like the same old. And then I thought, well, Instagram's got to be better. No, it's the same old. In fact, now when I every time I pick up my phone, I think, ooh, I'm going to check all these. And I see the same thing that I saw yesterday or this morning or an hour ago. I think, this is going to kill me. And so I took my phone and turned it all off and put it over there. Now, if you need to call me, I'll probably check my phone, but it won't be real soon. Because I realized how much time that sucks out of my life. Then I thought, how much other stuff do I do that sucks time out of my life? How much time do I just fritter away? And how much time have I just lost that I'll never regain? And I think going home by a different path demands that whatever little bit of time I have, whatever little bit of time is left, I got to use that wisely and well. That's a decision to be made. Every day it's a decision to be made. There are special people in my life. I need to tell them I love them and spend time with them. That's way better than a whole lot of other ways I could be spending time. There are people of God who gather as a congregation of believers with whom I should be spending time and in whom I should invest. That's being on a different path on the way home. When the Magi were on the way to a different place, going back home, they realized that things would never be the same. When I think about traveling home on a different path, I was thinking about something else this week. There are some habits that I have that have to be killed. Habits. Some ways of thinking, some ways of responding, some ways of how I do things in the world, the way I accrue stuff. Habits that have to be killed. And that really is mostly here, and here. Following a different path home means taking stock of the habits, taking stock of the way I do things, and saying, okay, is that consistent with the path, this different path from the world? Because the world says, hey, we got all you need. We got the money you need. We got the people who accord to you value. We got 401k. We got safety and security. You can trust us, the world says. We got politicians. They say you can trust us. We got an IRS who says, give us your money and we'll take care of it for you. The world has all kinds of things. The worldly path actually does make itself look pretty good. Man, I don't like to watch a lot of TV, but where was I? In the last day or two, the TV was on in my house, and I walked by, and there was one of those commercials that said, and you can get this for $19.99.99. I don't know how many nines they put in there, but it sounds like a whole lot. $19.99.99. And then they say, but wait, there's more. And you can have this also if you buy it today. But wait, and that guy said, but wait, 4 times. And I went, click. I cannot imagine that this world keeps telling me I can have all this stuff, but wait, I can get more. That's not the other path to home. And we too easily are sucked in by that. We live in a country, we live in a world where empires and nations, none of which are going to last. No human nation is going to survive. The whole world is passing away. The world that offers us so much, it offers us a lot in terms of safety and security and all the things that nations promise to offer, it's all going away. That's the worldly path. And very often, we commit ourselves and our allegiance and our loyalty to an earthly kingdom that actually is going away. Now, we can talk about citizenship and the things that we ought to be doing as Christians where we live, but that's different. Right now, we're saying there's 2 paths. One is the worldly path, and the world says, come our way, we'll take care of you. The other path, the different path home, is the one that we experience when we meet the Christ who says, follow me. Give me your ultimate allegiance and loyalty. Give me first place in your life. Seek first my kingdom and my righteousness. And all the other things that you think you need will be added unto you. Don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow has enough worry of its own. Didn't Jesus say that? When Jesus says, follow me, he says, take a different path home. Today, right now, take stock of where you live. Take stock of how you spend time with him. Take stock of how you manage your time and your money, how you take care of yourself personally. Take stock of habits that could be killing you. Take stock of those and say, what needs to go away so that I'm on the path, the different path to home.